I'm Tammy Sevcov, and this is Worth Considering, where we stretch our minds and grow as Christians to be better equipped to engage with the world around us. And today, we're talking about guns. The rise of mass shootings in America has reached epidemic proportions, and we must enact tougher gun laws if we have any hope of putting a stop to this. The rise of mass shootings in America has reached epidemic proportions, and we cannot think that gun control is the solve to this. All right, so this is easily one of the most hotly debated topics in America right now. The question of gun control is such an important one because it is dealing with the safety and security of our families, our children. I mean, this is something we all care about. And the truth is that gun control always comes up as a topic right on the heels of a heinous crime. So it's always in these very hot moments, in these very intense times where people have just been killed. I mean, it's horrific what has happened in the last number of years here in our country. We've seen such a rise in mass shootings. And the tough thing is that that's when we start talking about policy, which makes sense. I mean, when something terrible happens, you want to figure out how to fix it. And since it's already happened, you can't fix it, but you want to fix it from happening again. And so we start talking about what are the laws? What can we do to fix this? And the truth is that sometimes that can kind of derail the conversation from having the real deep conversations that are needed on this topic. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to argue either side of this really in this conversation. I want to talk us through what we're missing in the conversation and also as Christians, how we can engage appropriately with the conversation. Here's what I mean. Part of the problem has been as Christians, and especially if you kind of come down on that side of conservative Christian, which has started to have a lot of other insinuations in it recently in recent years, but just if typically you would say your family, your views lean toward conservative Christian, then there's been almost this vehemence of the Second Amendment being in the Bible. I don't know. It just feels like when I talk to Christians about this, it's like if somebody dares touch my gun rights, they hate Jesus. And that's not true. Are we all clear on that? It's not true. It's just not, because it's not in the Bible. But at the same time, you have people talking about these gun control laws like if only there was a law, then everything would be fixed. Like people who do crimes with guns are suddenly going to start obeying the laws, which we know isn't fair to consider that either. So we've got people on either end of this spectrum that are really pushing on their view, and we keep seeming to be pushing further and further away from each other and not having the conversations that are needed to grow and learn from one another, because there's probably some information that you don't have. I mean, shocking as it is, it's probably true. So when you look at something like mass shootings and gun control, we recognize that there are myriad issues going on here. I mean, honestly, think about it this way. There have been guns in our country since like all the years, all the years of our country. That's how long we've had guns. And it's not like we've had mass shootings like this in all those years, right? All the years haven't included mass shootings. Now, I'm not getting into the depth of one-on-one crime and different things, because I want to really hit on this mass perspective first and the conversation around gun control, because there is a brokenness that's happened, that's kind of crept up, and I feel like mass shootings are where we see it. And let me explain what I'm saying here. We've had guns, we haven't had mass shootings. We now have mass shootings, which I think to blame that on the rise of high capacity magazines in guns is oversimplifying things, because people could always kill people. There's another issue here that I want us to see, and I think kind of gets drowned out. When we see most of these mass shootings, really rarely is it someone who we expect to shoot people. Right? I mean, one-on-one crime often happens in situations that are maybe gang related or people who have violent pasts or criminal histories. A lot of these mass shootings are enacted by people who have no criminal history. So it's a little bit extra startling because you can't just blame it on the way they were raised. I mean, these aren't people who were raised in some crime family. They're not, hitmen from a mob family. It's usually really broken and hurt people. And somehow the idea of stepping into a public place, whether it was back in I think probably the 90s is when there was sort of like this idea of going postal, which became this thing because some postal workers went into their place of employment and shot people. And maybe it's just my age, but that's the first time I remember hearing people just kind of randomly doing that, more than just it happened once. So we've got this idea that people can go into a public scenario, place of work, place of education, place of worship, and just start killing people. And often people you don't know, but if they are people you know, like in a school shooting, it's not just the people you know. It's not just the people there's a vendetta against. There's other people who are being killed. And what is that? See, there's a devaluing of human life going on. Right? Everything from abortion to the idea of mercy killings or euthanasia has shifted the way our society looks at human life. Suddenly there's a value rating on human life. We can say this person is good and this person isn't as worthy of living. For whatever reason, they have less value. And so I believe that's begun to twist our perception of this life we live. Yes, there may be things with violence in video games, but I think there's, again, it's like this oversimplification, like, well, because people shoot people in video games, then they can shoot people in real life. I don't think it's quite, 1 + 1 = 2 on that. However, if people are broken and hurting, I think a lot of things can play into that decision to take something in their hands. To take something they ought not in their hands. So what do we do? I mean, how do we help with that? And that's where I think the argument or the conversation isn't being had. What are we doing to fix that? It's not just anti-bullying. And I think that's a good thing. But there's always been people who are mean. So what do we do as a society? How do we fix this? And I would say part of it is that society can't fix it. We Christians have to be the ones who are stepping up and making a change, that we look at the individuals. Jesus was always concerned about people. Do you notice that Jesus lived in a Jewish culture that was a subculture in a Roman culture? That Roman culture was completely hedonistic, completely godly. And yet you don't hear Jesus like railing against the Roman Empire all the time. He was really, in fact, the people he shook his fist at, if you want to say that Jesus shook his fist at people, I mean, he kind of did. But there's like this, the people he was the most frustrated with were the religious people. We who like confuse our Christian ethic and our biblical ethos with our political ethic. They're not the same, right? Like, not everything in politics is explicit in scripture. We have to be willing to process these things, consider them. In other countries, Christians look at things differently than we do in America. Why is that? They have the same Bible because they don't have the same country and they've been raised differently. We have to be able to have these conversations. And the truth is, if we don't stop banging our fists about our political views, we're not going to have the conversations that are deeper. Listen, if you believe that gun control laws will fix things and is needed in our country, good. Study it, research it, look at some things on the other side of the aisle, as it were, some of the other conversations going on, some of the other research that's been done, and then vote and lobby and really go after those things. Great. And if you believe that having our Second Amendment repealed or anything that would affect gun control is evil and bad, well, that's fair, but study it. Make sure you're having conversations, you're researching it. You're not just going based on what you heard someone else say. And then good, lobby, vote. I mean, go after it. Awesome. And if you have some good tools, some good websites, some good videos that you know of that would help people learn a little bit more about gun control or the value of our Second Amendment rights or anything that has to do with that, please share those in the comments. I'd love to hear those. Let's learn from one another. That's kind of the point of this whole thing. But can we as Christians commit that we're going to make the primary issue, which is the brokenness of people? Are we a church that people can come in and feel like in their brokenness, they can be accepted and received? That we can have the tough conversations and be transparent? That people can come in and not feel like they have to clean themselves all up perfectly before they're received and welcome? Can we be people that are honest and willing to say, look, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm willing to reach out to someone? Do you look for people who are sitting by themselves? I don't. Honestly, that's not where I'm strong. I can be really tunnel vision sometimes, and I hate it about myself. But I'm trying. I've been trying for a lot of years. But I'm still going after it because I see these things and I think these people, the broken people, which is most people, but you know what I'm talking about, those who have really been worked over, people who've been really injured. I mean, these are the people that often feel like there's no hope and they don't know what else to do. And things like taking others' lives suddenly becomes normalized, and we have to be people who are able to talk and share and consider and reach out into our world. I mean, be the foster parents, be the big sister, and be the big brother. Be willing to be a part of city government. I don't know what, but we have to be willing to step up and be the people of God that we're called to be, to show love, to think about the individual. Worth Considering is all about conversation, and I would love to hear your ideas in the comments. Please, let's keep our conversations helpful. If someone wants to rage, let's just not engage. Let's keep talking in a positive way. But I want to ask you, hey, if you liked this video, please, would you give it a thumbs up? Say that you liked it. Would you also consider subscribing? Hit that bell for notifications, and make sure that you're staying engaged with all the great conversations we're having and the great topics that are yet to come. Remember, this week, it's worth considering the other side of the story.